Hey friends, so if you came from my previous vlog, you would have known that this is the katabasis vlog. I was not really planning on filming a reading vlog or anything of Katabasis by R.F. Kuang, but it just so happens that she is doing an author event book tour and she's coming to my city to promote Katabasis. And so when those tickets were announced and I saw my city on that list, I was like, okay, I have to buy a ticket. R.F. Kuang is one of my auto buy authors, and she was really like the author that kind of got me into reading a bunch of different genres that I never expected myself to be reading. So when Katabasis was announced, I really didn't know what to expect with this. I just knew that it was about two students that pretty much go to hell. And I was like, you know what? I'm sold. I love the way R.F. Kuang writes. I like her stories. Do they make me emotionally unwell afterwards? Absolutely. So I thought I would do a little katabasis vlog because I am trying to finish this book before the event that is on Sunday. And in the event on Sunday as well, there is a book signing portion of it, apparently, allegedly, from what I received in the email. And I know that in this event, there's probably going to be spoilers from people. But at the same time, I truly don't know what I'm going to, say to R.F. Kuang, if I meet her in person and all that. It's just, to me, it didn't compute that she's, a real life human being until now. What what did I think she was in my head? I don't know. I am trying to finish Katabasis before Sunday, and it is currently Friday right now. So it is Friday evening, so I really only have about a day to finish this, which is doable and all of that. I'm 20% of the way in so far of this book, and I've been really enjoying it. But the thing is, the only times I've been able to read this book is at night. I'm going to try to read as much of it as I can this evening and then try to finish it tomorrow. I'm listening to the audiobook on Audible for it, so I am very confident that I can finish it. I did not sound confident at all, but no, I am confident that I will be able to finish this. Even though it's a vlog, you probably won't get much of me vlogging. I will try to pop in the areas that I can to pop in and give you my thoughts. So far, I haven't talked about this book at all. The first 20% has been really fun so far. I always forget how funny R.F. Kuang. A lot of the characters she writes are unlikable, and I think that's what I like so far, is she can make unlikable characters likable. R.F. Kuang is one of those authors that it's like she could take the most unlikable person, and I enjoy reading a book about that. Am I the best person to explain what this book is about? Absolutely not, but I will attempt it. Pretty much it's about this graduate student, I believe, named Alice Law, who's pretty much studying a form of magic, if that makes sense, because magic exists in this universe. And so pretty much something happens with her supervising professor. She decides to go to hell to save him and get this recommendation letter from him. And going to hell, she is joined by her arch nemesis, Peter Murdoch, and all of that. And so pretty much this whole book is just about this journey to hell. The plot itself is very much like how I explained it to you. The true goal of this book is for them to get this recommendation letter from this professor. And so a lot of this book uncovers just a lot of research and all of that, and just different depictions of hell. It leans more on the academic side of things for sure, which, considering R.F. Kuang is an academic herself, I don't understand why people were shocked to see that this is very heavy on the academia side of things. There's just a lot of different research about ways people see hell, different, diagrams, how scholars see hell, how, people who study the subject, see the afterlife and all that. And so it's very interesting. There's definitely a lot of references to other literature and all that dive into, this subject area and all that. For someone who doesn't have an academic degree about this whole subject, for me, it's been entertaining. I think the characters are fun. I think the situations that they get into are very, fun as well. And it's a book that I feel like, it doesn't need to take itself so seriously. It's very sarcastic humor, I would say, in this book, and like the narration and all of that. And so, yeah, those are sort of my initial thoughts on Katabasis by R.F. Kuang so far. And so I'm going to try to get as like into as much of this book as I can.
With another man, I knew that I won't forget. Forget me. I was lucky when someone else.
I just made it to chapter 17 of Katabasis, and so that's almost like 50% of the way through this book. And I thought I would come on here and share my thoughts. I've been reading for the past 2 hours based off of where I ended up last night. Don't get me wrong, if I wasn't under like a time constraint, I think I would have like to read this a lot slower. So this is definitely going to be more of a reread for me, but I just don't want to come across like any spoilers or anything when I go to the event tomorrow. So I am trying to get through this a bit quicker than normal, but this is a book that I would love to annotate. I'm really enjoying it. Is this going to be my favorite R.F. Kuang novel? Probably not. First off, like my favorite, I would say R.F. Kuang books is the Poppy War trilogy. And so there's just something about that trilogy that, I really connected to. With this one, I understand the themes and the points she's making. This is more of a dark academia book. A lot of themes that they come across are about the systemic problems of academia, and especially like when you are in those like postdoc degrees and you're in grad school or you're doing like the research end of things, there's a lot of topics that can be discussed, and there's a lot of criticisms that can happen, and there's a lot of criticisms about how especially like the Western lens of academia is seen. And so, yeah, it's like for the most part for this book, I would say that if you don't like the characters in this book, you probably won't like the rest of this book. There is a plot as to what the end goal is and how we're going to get to the end goal. Very much, I have no idea what to expect. There have been some instances where it picks up and then it slows down and then it picks up again and then it slows down. Like the pacing is a bit more uneven. There have been moments where I have gotten a bit lost, and then there's some things that like help kind of bring me back to enjoying it again. But overall, if you were to ask me to explain the plot of this to you, I probably wouldn't be able to. But that's also due to the fact that there's just a lot of information being thrown at you in this book. And if you are someone who gets overwhelmed by a lot of information, again, probably won't be for you, especially if you aren't well versed in a specific subject and all of this jargon and information is being thrown at you, and you don't like that, then this probably isn't the book for you. But for me, I really didn't have any expectations going into this book. I truly didn't know what to expect. And so I think for me that worked out in my favor because I'm pretty much just here trying to enjoy the ride. And I am enjoying the ride. I think I'll be able to complete this by tonight, hopefully. And yeah, those are my initial thoughts going into the 50% mark of this book. And so I will probably update you a bit closer to when I'm near the end of it. I've made it to chapter 23 of Katabasis, and so I'm a bit more than 60% of the way through this book now, so I'm almost at the last little bit of it. But I wanted to give an update because I feel like now we've gotten so much more information about the characters, about their lives, and it's been really interesting to see that get unpacked, because I would say the middle of this book does get a bit slower, especially towards the second half. A lot of the book is told a bit more through like flashbacks and all of that. Honestly, the flashback chapters are entertaining me more than the actual like plot of them being in hell, if that makes sense. Like, just learning more about these characters and the depth and the stuff that they went through and all of that before they ended up on their journey to hell has been a bit more interesting than the actual journey itself. If is that a spoiler? I don't know. But yeah, I'm currently at chapter 23, and I don't really know how this book is going to end. It is probably going to destroy me, but yeah, I think I've also reached a point where I care about both the characters and I understand where each of them come from. Do I agree with the decisions that they've made? Absolutely not. But I think, I think they're two characters that have kind of been in their little insular bubbles, but at the same time, they're also like two sides of the same coin. I'm going to try and finish the last 30% of this book. I don't know how much, again, I'm going to vlog of this, but if something crazy happens, I will bring out my camera and we will experience it together. But yeah, those are my thoughts on 60% of the way through this book. I've made it to chapter 29, which is page 450, and according to Audible, I have about an hour left of this book, considering I am listening on like 3 times speed, because 3 times speed is equivalent to kind of the pace I read, like in my head. If that makes sense, if you get my drift. I have an hour left, so I'm gonna try and finish that, but I am gonna take a break because a lot of information has been stored into my brain and I need a break from it. But we'll see how I feel about the end of this book, because I don't know, the past few chapters to me haven't been as engaging. So I'm hoping the end really pulls through for this, but I will let you know. I just finished reading Katabasis, and I'm going to come back to you tomorrow morning when I've had a bit more time to think about this book. But honestly, I really like the ending. I mean, did I kind of suspect it while reading? Absolutely. But it paid off in the end. And for those of you who are reading this book and want to do the immersive reading experience, I would highly suggest you get the audiobook, because the last chapter especially, very good in the audiobook. Very good. And I can't say anything more than that without there being spoilers or anything like that. I was pleasantly surprised by the ending of that audiobook. And so Yeah, those are the initial thoughts I have while finishing this up. I am going to sit here and think about my feelings and rating for this book because I don't think this is a 5 stars for me just because compared to Arquan's other books, I like it didn't hook me. Like there were moments where it was like I was super engaged and then it would go into other things that kind of lost me. I'm going to think about this for a bit and return my thoughts, but I really did like the ending. So that may influence how I rate this. But yeah, I will come back to you tomorrow. It's currently the next morning, and I'm not doing my review of Katabasis just yet. Today is the day of the signing and Katabasis tour event happening, and so I got ready for it. And then I was watching TikToks, and apparently you can get like any book signed. And so at first I was going to get my copy of Babel signed, but then I was like, but okay, Babel is a good book. It is a 5 star book, but it is not my favorite R.F. Kuang book. My favorite R.F. Kuang book is The Dragon Republic, and they came out with the special edition of it, and I do not have it. And so what I was planning on doing is going to the bookstore, grabbing that signed edition, and then bringing it to the signing event. So that's what I'm going to do. So I got ready and all of that, and let me tell you, it's like in this area, like Sundays, like weekends, are just always crazy busy. Here, for some reason, I think what happens is a lot of people go to church on Sundays and then they come to the bookstore afterwards. And so, like, literally every time I am here on a weekend, I am fighting for my life. Okay, I am fighting for my life trying to grab this book and just checking out, but no, everyone and their mothers is here. So, yeah, I'm gonna try to run and grab that quickly, come out. And let me tell you, like, even coming into this parking lot, I was also fighting for my life. Like, it's not busy, it's just people don't know how to drive. And so, yeah, I'm going to get that, and then I'm going to go home, and then we are going to do my Katabasis review, and then we're off to the event. So I'm back, and that was the quickest book shopping I have ever done in my life. I was literally in and out, but still tell me how I came out with 2 books. I need to be stopped at this point. Having adult money has literally destroyed me, but has literally destroyed my bank account. But anyways, I got the special edition Dragon Republic, the sprayed edges, all that. I literally cannot wait to get this signed. And then I found Fairy Tale. So do I know much about Fairy Tale? No, but a lot of the booktubers I watch and all of that have really like this, and so I might as well, I was like, you know, I see it, I might as well try it out and see how I like this. I'm probably going to annotate it. It is huge. So this is a huge book, and for some reason, again, like all of the books I read in the fall come into fantasy, and they're like 500 to 800 page fantasy books. So love my life for that. Lots of reading vlogs to come. I'm going to head home, do my review, edit some videos, and then we're going to head out to the event. I'm back at home, and now it is time for the long-awaited Katabasis review. And overall, I gave this a 4 stars. Is this my lowest rated R.F. Kuang book? Yes, it is. But did that mean I hated the book? Absolutely not. I really like this book, and I feel like if I didn't have like a time constraint on reading this, I probably would have sat here and annotated this, and probably it would have at least taken me a month to get through, because there's just so much in this that fascinated me and really piqued my interest. And you can definitely tell that R.F. Kuang did so much research to write this book. And so overall, I feel like where it lost a lot of, I guess, points from me is more so on like the emotional impact side and more of the plot side. This is definitely a more character driven novel, but at the same time, I feel like a lot fell short when it came to the kind of the character arc of some characters in this book. And I'm not gonna say who because that would be a spoiler, but there were a lot of opportunities for R.F. Kuang to really like give us more detail and more information about a specific character, that but she didn't, and it ultimately fell a little bit short in that sense. Meanwhile, there was one character where their arc was fairly much emphasized throughout the entire book, and so you're with this character through the entire book, and so you really get an understanding of them, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, for me, I didn't necessarily cry while reading this book. Normally, I cried reading The Poppy War, I cried reading Babel and all of that. But for this one, this just, there weren't enough beats in the book that really made me, you know, feel emotional for any of the characters, if that makes sense. What I love about R.F. Kuang, though, is that when it comes to characters, she's really good at writing unlikable characters that, even though most of the time you won't agree with them, but you understand them. And I think that's what R.F. Kuang is so good at doing, because it is very easy to write an annoying character and have people not sympathize with them, not empathize with them, and honestly, you just want them to go to hell, you know? But for this book, I would say the main character, Alice, she's very unlikable. But at the same time, throughout this book, you see her go through a character arc and a character journey and grapple with a lot of different themes and different topics for like a woman like her to go through. And, R.F. Kuang makes this very much unlikable character, someone who by the end of it, come to just, you can empathize with her, but at the same time, you come to understand her by the end of it. And so it's like, does she make a lot of questionable decisions throughout this book? Yes, absolutely she does. But at the same time, you understand her motivations and you understand where she comes from while making these decisions. You don't have to agree with everything that they're doing in these books, because at the end of the day, you probably won't. And if you do, I am questioning your morals and ethics a bit. Moving on to the actual plot. Again, this is more character driven. There is a plot, and the main plot is very much what I've been telling you the entire time. Like, Alice and Peter, two students, go to hell to save their dead professor. While they're in hell, they experience a lot of, this is where a lot of the research comes in that makes me feel so much smarter coming out of it, but also makes me feel stupider, because there is no way I can eloquently explain this in the way that R. Huang does. And that, there are different layers of hell. There's like 8 or 9 layers of hell. And pretty much Alice and Peter go through each layer and they encounter different situations and all of that. But I feel like plot wise, it is a very strong start, because when you start this book, you're thrown into it. And then it definitely slows in the middle, and then it picks up at the end. And for me, pacing wise, I wasn't a huge fan of that either. I kind of wish there was a momentum the entire book where, you would get to another situation and you would feel the stakes a bit more, and you would feel, it would engage you a bit more. But there were times in this book where it's like I understood why we had to get to this place, but at the same time, it just didn't engage me as much as other situations did. This book jumps between present and a lot of flashbacks and all of that. And personally for me, I found the flashbacks to be a bit more intriguing than the actual like current situations we were in sometimes. But that's also more on me, I would say. But at the same time, I feel like katabasis is very much an amalgamation. Pretty much every single one of R.F. Kuang's other books and other pieces of literature I can see reflected in this book. I see elements of Poppy War. I see elements of Babel. I see even elements of Yellowface in this book. And I think that's like being able to pick those out and sort of see R.F. Kuang grow as a writer is really interesting as well. Like when we were in the flashbacks, I had more like, it felt like I was in the world of Babel a bit more, and how that world was, sort of taught to you. And then when it came to like characterization, I I thought a lot more about like the Poppy War and all that. And when it came to sort of like the humor of this, I was thinking Yellowface. Like that's kind of like, I could pick out R. Kwang's other pieces of work. And I think that's really interesting, especially like with R.F. Kuang as a writer because she's writing all of these different books and different types of genres in each book. It's just very interesting to just see her grow as a writer. And sometimes she's gonna write things that really resonate with you. She's gonna write other things that might not. And I think it really depends as well on when you read her books and what situations you've been a part of and how you reflect upon what happens thematically and not thematically in these books, if that makes sense. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just spouting words at you guys. And if you get what I'm saying, you get it. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. I saw a lot of different elements from every other book that I've read of hers in this one. And so just like she has her stamp as a writer and she has her ways of telling stories. And I feel like there are a lot of criticism on how she writes and all of that. And I feel like people who are saying that this reads like a textbook, I am guessing you've never read an abstract in your life. Like, I'm guessing you haven't read many research papers because this does not read like a textbook or a research paper at all. It speaks as more of like a nerd nerding out about a specific topic and hyperfixating on that specific topic. And as a fellow nerd who knows how to hyperfixate on a specific topic, I understand that. And I appreciated every single piece of research that went into this book because do I know anything about like mythology surrounding hell? Do I know anything about like Dante's Inferno? Absolutely not, but I still ate all of this up. The only thing that I could really relate to when it came to previous knowledge of this book was I took a Death in the Afterlife course elective in university, and that loosely talked about like the themes of how different religions see death in the afterlife. But other than that, don't know anything about it. But I think R.F. Kuang did a good job in kind of like creating like hell and also bringing and tying those elements of different, mythologies, different religions, and how each kind of person sees hell and kind of combines it all into one, if that makes sense. But yeah, there's a ton of research about it, and yeah, there are criticisms again with R. Kwang's writing, and not to say that some of them are valid because reading is a subjective art, but to me, I don't agree with a lot of the criticisms when it comes to the actual writing part of this book. And then we come to the one of the other criticisms people have in that I believe this was marketed to some people as a romance book. And personally, to me, when anyone says that there's romance in an R.F. Kuang book, you gotta take it with a grain of salt. I'm sorry. But I remember when Poppy War became big on TikTok and all that, people were marketing it as an enemies to lovers romance. Where in Poppy War has that ever been an enemies to lovers romance? That no. So when people were saying that this had romance in it, I also took it with a grain of salt. In that with this one, I would say compared to Poppy War, I would say it's this kind of like a very similar in the sense that like there's tension between the two characters, but I would say this one definitely has more of the romance plot and it's more so spoken about like explicitly, if that makes sense. So but is this like an instant love or whatever? No, like it's very much a slow burn, and the relationship that happens is very much underlying, like the romance that happens is more underlying, like it really romance isn't the main theme or the main plot or the main genre of this book. Like there's things that happen that yeah obviously like are part of the romance subplot and all that. So I would say there is a romance subplot in this for sure. But it's also like there are bigger themes and elements that this book is handling compared to the romance side. And so I would say anytime someone says that like there's a romance in a R. Kwang book, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Okay, like don't expect like ACOTAR level like romance or anything in this book. Like this is an R.F. Kuang novel. Like let's be serious. Let's be a little bit for real. Anyways, those are all my thoughts, spoiler free at least. That's all I really have to say. Would this be a book that I would reread? Absolutely. I definitely want to reread this and go in and annotate it and everything like that. It's just a matter of when and the time because yeah, but like coming out of any R.F. Kuang book, I always feel like smarter because I feel like R.F. Kuang dives into a lot of different areas that if I never picked up her books, I probably just would never think of to pick, like to research those types of areas myself or, really be interested in those types of areas. And so that's what I love about reading R.F. Kuang books so much is that like it's just, obviously she writes fantasy and she writes historical fiction. She writes satire and all that. She writes a lot of different genres that we're familiar with, but she does it in her own way that has a lot of academic research that brings in a lot of, this is also a dark academia. So I, appreciate it as someone who honestly has a very love hate relationship with school and all that, especially like post secondary. Like, I always love reading her books because they just make, like, they're just interesting. And, they also come to terms with a lot of, the problems like people have with post secondary education and, academia and all of that. So, yeah, those are all of my thoughts on katabasis. I probably have more, but we're not going to get into it for this video. We are going to head out to the event soon, but yeah, I'm already dressed for the event. I also picked up the Dragon Republic for the signing and all of that, which I'm super excited about. Also, this book is literally stunning. And yeah, those are all my thoughts on katabasis. I'll check in with you guys in a bit. I've made it to the location of the event. Getting here was very interesting because it's at the library that's like in downtown. And so there's so much construction happening in the Calgary downtown that it's literally a pain in the ass to get anywhere. And so I took a very different route than what I normally take. And so let's just say there were so many like roads that were closed and all that everyone was so confused. Like the amount of people that almost hit me that I almost hit was insane. Like the body count was a bit high. The car count was a bit too high. And yeah, mostly it was confused Uber drivers and tourists that were in the area. So fair enough. I'm a local, so I was just as confused. But yeah, I found some parking in the area, so that's great. This area is a bit interesting. The event doesn't start till 4 and I'm like, it's literally 3:25 right now, because I wasn't sure about the parking situation. And also like apparently they do have like a pre-event sort of happening, and so yeah, they do have like a pre-event happening, but I just also don't really want to socialize that much. And so I might head in at around like 3:35, see the vibes, walk around the library for a bit because it is open, and then go into the event. But yeah, those are the vibes right now, so I might just chill here for like 10 minutes and see what's around. Yeah, this area is quite... There are a lot of interesting characters, I will say, in this area. I'm just watching people parallel park right now, and it's an interesting vibe. It's an interesting vibe here. And yeah.
Oh my gosh, do you have any say in that?
No, not at all. But music was better back then.
It'll be, I can like picture it now. I'm a
Federal attacks on free speech in universities, the unconstitutional withdrawal of funding for well, to begin with, I just love writing about rivalries. I think they're so rich and intimate and are often more interesting than writing about just straight romance. Some of my favorite fictional works are about rivalries, like Christopher Nolan's film.
I'm back from the event and the signing, and honestly, I had such a fun time. I got there at around like 3:30ish, and I was really thinking like, oh, like it starts at 3, or like the pre-event starts at 3, like no one's gonna show up at 3, I'll show up at around 3:30 because I'm by myself and I don't really want to socialize that much. I literally show up at 3:30 and 3/4 of like the auditorium was like full already, and I was like, oh, okay, I should go find my seat. And so, yeah, I ended up finding like a single seat in between these two girls. And it turns out that like the girls I was sitting with in my row, we all were like single people. We all went by ourselves. And so we started talking and all that. And it was really, really fun getting to talk with them and sort of talk about our favorite books of R.F. Kuang's and all of that. And so the talk itself was so good and so fun. I only took a couple like photos and videos and all that because I really just wanted to digest everything that Rebecca was saying. And a lot of the time, she talked a lot about katabasis and all of that and sort of her process rating this, her writing process, her thoughts on like, AI, ChatGPT, her thoughts on like dark or academia and all of that. And so it was really interesting. She speaks very eloquently. I can't really regurgitate anything that she said. Truly beautiful way that she speaks and all of that. But I had a really good time just like sitting there and listening to her talk and all that. And I could literally sit there and talk to her for hours. Okay, if she was my prof, I would be sat and I would be ready. My pen and paper would be out. And after hearing her talk about katabasis, it made me want to bring my rating up from a 4 stars to a 4.25, which I'm not. I'm going to keep it as 4 stars because that's how I felt after reading it. But when I do my reread of katabasis, whenever that may be, probably next year, I'm going to keep those notes in my head on how she spoke about like the characters and all of that. And I really like how she talked about the characterization in her talk about the characters. I can say this, but she says that the names Alice and Peter are references to the characters, obviously Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan. Do with that information as you wish if you haven't read this book yet or anything. But I think after like getting that clarity and hearing that little note, I was like, okay, I get what you're putting down, Rebecca. But yeah, she's just a really good speaker and a very well-rounded, just like individual in general. She's very funny. The way she speaks is very apparent in like her humor is very apparent in her writing and all that, but like she's very quick with it. She's very quick with her humor and all of that. So yeah, overall I had a fun time. So I did get a signed copy of Katabasis, so this was a pre-signed copy, and there's also a stamp in it. I have no idea if you could see that or not, but here is the signed copy of it. And then, sorry, I was having some technical difficulties. But then we also got to choose, a book that we wanted signed as well with our name on it. And so I obviously brought my special edition of the Dragon Republic. I literally bought this morning. And yeah, she also we got our names written down as well as her signature. As for like the signing and all that, I was so nervous for the signing because I was like, I truly don't know what I'm going to say to her. And I truly said nothing to her because it was so quick. The signing was sort of like, put your bags down, open your book, hand it to her, she signs, and then you leave. Like you really only had like 3 seconds to talk to her. So I literally like gave her my book and she was like, oh, Marisa? And I was like, oh no, it said Marissa. And she's like, oh, hi Marissa, thanks for coming. And I was like, thank you so much. That was it. That was a conversation. I love you. But yeah, she wrote my name with a heart beside it. So yeah. But overall, I had such a fun time at this event. I mean, like, as someone who is a shy introvert, there's a bug. Technical difficulties part 2, but I literally have no idea what kind of bug I just killed. I think it might have been. I actually don't know. I don't know what bug I killed. Anyways, I choose not to think about that. Anyways, as someone who is a shy introvert, going to this event alone by myself, first off, was very scary, but at the same time, I'm so used to doing things like independently that it's like, as long as I know that at the end of it, I'm going to enjoy it and I'm doing something that I love, I think the scariness of it and like the anxiety comes back away from me. And so, like, going to this event, I literally went because I have no friends that like read in the they don't read in the amount, like in the sense of how I read, where I'm reading 100 books a year and I'm constantly talking about it on a platform like YouTube and all that. They are very much casual readers. For me, I like reading because it's my hobby, and my hobby is books. My hobby is talking about books, and my hobby is interacting with books and authors and all that. And so a lot of the times when there's like a bookish event or like a new book coming out, I'm doing these things by myself. And so I really just see these events as opportunities to, try and find other people who have those same hobbies as me. And if they're also by themselves at these events, then, it's just taking that initiative to just go up and say hi and introduce yourself. And, you can have the longest conversation in the world with a random stranger about a specific topic, or it can just be very short, like, hey, I like your nails. Hey, I like your bag. And it could be just left as that. And so getting to go to these events really just pushes me to just step outside my comfort zone, because I know like books I find so comforting and so normal to me that when like it's time to that next step, like just going to an event like this was just really fun. I thought it was well done as well. Like we had ice cream there, you could get a drink there, you could also buy books there if you wanted to. So it was really, really just like overall, I really like this event. Those are my thoughts on katabasis and meeting our kuang. She's super sweet, she's super nice, she's super funny. I highly suggest if she's like doing a tour or anything in your area, you check her out because she's just one of my favorite authors ever. And I'm going to end this vlog here. Thank you so much for watching if you watched this far, and hopefully I see you in my next video.